Jay, let me start with you and thank you for joining in. Now, just prima facie, looking at the set of allegations and looking at what SEBI's own policies and regulations say, is there a case to ask Madhvi Puri Butch for more transparency, more rigor, more details today? Is there any merit at all that you see from any angle in what Hindenburg is saying?
Tamanna, firstly, thank you for calling me on your show. And if you just give me a moment, then I'd just like to frame it a little differently. There was a problem with the audio, so I didn't have the benefit of listening to your other very distinguished guests. But I will tell you this, that this entire issue has already gone to the Supreme Court once. There has been a massive inquiry that took place under the stewardship of a former Supreme Court judge, one of the most respected, Justice Sapre. They found nothing wrong. They returned that report, the Supreme Court accepted it, and this was sometime earlier this year. And please remember, the first Hindenburg report came in January of 2023. So if anything, Indian investors, those holding Adani stocks, and I want to make this very clear as for full disclosure, I hold no brief for the Adani Group. I don't even own a single share of Adani, so it makes no difference to me. But I will tell you this, that tomorrow when markets open, even from a layperson's perspective as a lawyer, I can tell you that this is a storm in a teacup. There is absolutely no material, no merit in this so-called report which I've read, which tries to, on the basis of innuendo and insinuation, tries to paint the Butch couple as though they had some conflict of interest or that they were involved with the Adanis. I don't think there is any merit to it at all. In fact, even the Supreme Court, and I must point this out very vehemently, I must say this, the Indian Supreme Court is extremely robust. And we've had, in fact, I have appeared myself in a public interest litigation against a large automotive component manufacturer, in which the Supreme Court directed an ED and CBI inquiry, and it turned out that there was a 30,000 crore loan scam that had taken place. So you have a very robust judiciary that is at play here, and they're not afraid of anybody. There is no fear or favor here. So if there was any material that the Hindenburg chaps had, which if it had any credibility, they should have come to India, filed a criminal complaint, gone to SEBI, and if SEBI had not acted, then they should have filed a PIL and come to the Supreme Court. So what do they do now? This entire exercise is aimed at destroying reputations, right? The whole objective is to somehow or the other destabilize the Indian economy, and perhaps for political gain and for monetary gain. We already know this. I mean, after all, these are short sellers. These aren't some good Samaritans who are trying to help the Indian economy. So when they failed on the first occasion, right, when they targeted a particular company, it didn't work, the charges didn't stick, Supreme Court gave a clean chit. What do you do then? Then you come back around the second time and then you attack the institutions. You attack the regulator itself. And I read those. I mean, when the whole build-up to it was so sinister, Tamanna. I mean, if you read that tweet that they first put out as though this is the launch of some blockbuster film, they say something big is coming. Why create this ridiculous sensationalism? If you have something meritorious, come out and put it out, give it to the investigating agencies, come to India, file a case. But you have these individuals who have been discredited, who are in fact facing an inquiry themselves by SEBI. What do they do in reaction? So it's like, when we were kids and, your teacher said something and said that you performed poorly, you would go back to your parents at home and you'd say, well, it's the teacher's fault. This is exactly what these people are doing. They have no love for the Indian investor. They're trying to profit off the misery of Indian investors. And if you really ask me, I think it is also the failure of Indian investigating agencies. They're letting down Indian investors. They should find out who these short sellers are, identify them. There is a provision under the SEBI Act, under Section 11, and there are very distinguished corporate lawyers on this panel, and they will agree with me. Under Section 11 of the SEBI Act, you have the ability to disgorge those profits which someone has made illegally. So now the question really that I ask myself is this, that why don't the Indian investigating agencies do a proper full-fledged inquiry and find out who the main actors abroad are, who are orchestrating this entire, scam, I would call it a scam, and figure out who the allies are in India who are trying to gain either monetary or political profit out of this entire, this scam. And this group has no credibility in my mind at all. And tomorrow morning, I have no doubt that this will amount to a storm in a teacup. The Indian investor is an extremely, extremely incisive being. They understand what report is legitimate. They understand which allegations are motivated. So I frankly think there is going to be zero impact on this tomorrow on the markets, and let alone on the Adani stock. And I do hope that our agencies expose these people who've made money or who are trying to make money in this really malintentioned way. So from the legal perspective, just to sum it up very quickly, from the legal perspective, Tamanna, I can tell you with great confidence, I've seen that report. It's just innuendo, trying to throw mud at people's reputations. And there's absolutely no merit or meat in those allegations at all. I mean, I had put out a tweet yesterday in which I had said that no court in the world, anywhere in the world, which has any credibility, would even take cognizance of such material if it came before it in the form of a complaint.
Right.
So what do? You sit on the East Coast, you sit in the US, and you put out this report, you sensationalize it, and you hope that there's a big dhamaka that takes place in India Monday morning.
Right.
So I think these people need to be prosecuted.
Right, Jay. This is Vishwanath joining in. I want to bring it back to the point you mentioned earlier. This case or these allegations against Adani Group have already been debated to death in the Supreme Court. Does a report like this, which brings that discussion back and then points fingers at the people who are actually investigating that matter, doesn't that also sort of try to play people against the Supreme Court's own decision making?
You ask an excellent question, and the answer lies in the chronology of what transpired after the first Hindenburg report came out. Please look at it like this. The report comes out. There is Supreme Court doesn't say that we will not look into it. They appoint an expert committee. The finest minds in India who understand security law are recruited into this committee, including judges, one former judge of the Supreme Court, with unimpeachable integrity. Everything is gone into threadbare, into great detail. And they come back and say that there is nothing amiss. Now, please look at what happens right after. And therein lies the answer, where the malintention is, which I referred to earlier. After a clean chit is given, Hindenburg keeps completely quiet. In fact, I think their investors must have lost money, gone after the principles of Hindenburg. And now, with their tail between their legs, they come back with another ridiculous innuendo-laden report. And I'll tell you where my disgust comes in as an Indian. More than any individual company or targeting a person, this is an attack on India's institutions, as though we are some third world country where we have to listen to some colonial style power which will tell us how to conduct an inquiry or tell us about the health of our corporate governance structures. We don't need lessons in corporate governance from these individuals.
If I were to, I get your point completely, but if I were to even look at it this way, that we are a system that wants to be robust, wants to constantly improve, and I'm going to bring in Sanjay Asher here, and we need to understand this very clearly legally. At the end of the day,
before you go to Mr. Asher, if I may just say one thing very quickly. Tamanna, the point is, of course, there is always room for improvement.
Yeah.
But it has to come in the form of some credible material. You just can't make, you can't pass off innuendo as high quality evidence or material and then expect the courts or the regulator to unleash a fishing and roving inquiry, because it serves the political agenda of a few people in India, and it fills the pockets of certain short sellers sitting in the US. It can't be on that basis. Right?
The thing is, the important thing and the crucial thing is that who is really going to suffer? There's politics, there's innuendo, it'll all go on and on. Think of the Indian retail investor who gets hammered by all of this, who has no voice, who has no union, who has no vote bank for any political party, and no one thinks of them.
I disagree. I have a slight difference in opinion there, which is that the Indian investor is a very smart creature. You can try and fool him once, you can't fool him twice. And I don't think this second time around, this report, nobody is going to buy into Hindenburg. It's lost all credibility. They kept quiet for the longest time after their claims were debunked in the first round of investigation. Supreme Court gave a clean chit, they kept quiet. Now they've gone and dug up something which has absolutely no head or tail. There's no evidence of any wrongdoing, any favors, nothing. And they come and try and make these, long shot connections.
I'm going to take that point.